Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today we're going to talk about cell size, the size of cells, why they are so small. So we're going to have to talk about a couple different things to come to our conclusion. So first, let's talk about what we're really focusing on here and the questions we want to have answered. We really want to come down to the end and answer two major questions here. All right. Why are cells so small? All right. And why is it better to be multicellular than one big cell? So we've talked about different types of cells, prokaryotes versus eukaryotes, unicellular versus multicellular. We are multicellular eukaryotic cells. Have organelles, we have nuclei, but I am not just one big eukaryotic cell. I am made up of trillions of different types or different eukaryotic cells and more specialized cells. All of them are very, very, very small. And there's a reason, a benefit of being so small. Why am I trillions of really tiny cells instead of one big one, or even just like, one big heart cell versus one big brain cell, one big lung cell? We're going to talk about that today. And the reason is because of a little bit of mathematics, all right? And just understanding of some geometry, all right? And so that's what we're going to focus on here first today. So you guys should have your guys' handy dandy notebooks out, and we should take some notes here, and we're going to be focusing on this right here. All right. Now, if you are taking notes on this, which you should be, I encourage you to pause the video right now to make sure your notes look like this board as we talk about surface area, volume, and ratio. All right. Drill those little blocks. Pause it right now. Okay. So hopefully, I actually paused it. All right. What we have here, all right, I'm going to do this as a very generic talk about some of the geometry and some of the physics, and then we're going to talk a little bit how that relates to cells. All right, so I have 3 blocks here, 3 cubes. All right, one is 1 by 1 by 1 centimeter, 2 by 2 by 2, 3 by 3 by 3. All right, and we're going to compare these different cells here. So first, we're going to compare their surface area. That's how much is on the outside. How much space is on the outside of the cube. All right. Then we'll talk about volume. That's the amount of space inside the cube. It's a 3-dimensional object. So it's how much is inside of it. So the surface area is just kind of the outside boundary. The area is going to be the inside. And then we have a ratio here. That ratio is going to be of surface area to volume ratio, like 2 to 1, 3 to 1. This is 3 times larger than this. This is half as large as this, right? So we're going to talk about that ratio here. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of mathematics first, but I'll do a lot of the work for you. You don't have to get out a calculator. All right, so if I have a really small square, so I have a small cube, medium, and a large cube. If I take my really small one to find the surface area of a cube, you're going to take one of these lengths times 6 squared. All right, it'd be length squared times 6. So if I was going to do this here, I would end up with a surface area of 6 centimeters cubed. Squared, because it's area. 6 centimeters squared, sorry. All right. 2 by 2 by 2, 2 squared times 6, that's going to be 24 centimeters cubed. All right, which makes sense. It's bigger. There's more boundary around the outside. All right, and if I was going to do 3 by 3 by 3, it would be 54 centimeters cubed. All right, so it's getting bigger, right? It went from 6 to 24 to 54. All right, it's getting bigger. If I was going to do my volume would be the length cubed. All right, so the first one would be just 1 centimeter cubed. 1 centimeter by centimeter by centimeter cube could fit inside this cube, which makes sense. All right. This one, because it's 2 by 2 by 2, it's not 4 because it's a 3-dimensional object. All right. It goes from 1 centimeter cubed to this one goes up by times 4. All right. This one's going to go up by times 8. All right. So it goes up by times 8. And then if we go to the next one here, right, 3 by 3 by 3, this would be 27 centimeters cubed. All right. You're saying, okay, Mr. Richardson, I don't really understand these numbers. I see what you're saying, surface on the outside versus the volume. What does that make a difference? All right. And it really comes down to this one right here. All right. And then I'll tie it into how we talk about cells. All right. It's a ratio. All right. So this one here is a ratio of 6 to 1. This one is a ratio of 24 to 8 or 3 to 1. The surface area is 3 times larger than the volume, while when it's small, the surface area, the outside, is 6 times larger than the volume in the inside. All right, and this ratio right here is a 2 to 1 or is a 2 to 1 ratio, where the surface area is only twice as large. So the ratio is getting smaller, and when it's small, I have a lot of surface area per volume. Here, I have a smaller amount of surface area per volume. Okay, Mr. Richardson, why does this matter? Why does this matter about cells? Why does this matter about biology? This just seems like a lot of geometry and mathematics, and it's because those are tied together. All right, so now let's apply what we know. All right, if these are cells, that outside boundary would be our cell membrane. All right, so if our surface area would be, our membrane on that outside, we know the job of the membrane is to let things in and out of the cell, right? So right here, this is a very small cell. I have a smaller amount of surface area. All right. While here, I have obviously a bigger object, right? And I have a lot more surface area, literally going from 6 to 20 or 54, which means I have a lot more membrane. If its job is to allow certain things in and out of the cell, that means there's more things. More surface area means more things in and out of the cell. All right. Well, that makes sense. All right, volume is the measure of the inside. This would be all the organelles, the nucleus, everything on the inside of the cell. Organelles, nucleus, etc. Right? All the stuff on the inside, all the stuff that needs nutrients, right? Whether it's ions or glucose or amino acids, all the things that need to go into the cell or things that need to go out of the cell has to go across that surface area because we need to get, let's just say, glucose into the center of our cell. All right. That ratio is between the amount of surface area versus volume. All right. So now here, let's put in this situation. Let's say, all right, let's apply an actual situation here and how this matters. All right. Let's say each one of these is a cell. I have my cell membrane. I have my stuff on the inside. All right. Let's say I'm going to do a workout, right? And my body's going to require a lot of glucose because I need a lot of ATP, a lot of energy. So my body is going to bring in a lot of glucose. That glucose is going to have to go across that cell membrane on the outside and go into my cell. All right. It's going to diffuse through facilitated diffusion. But let's say glucose can only diffuse at, let's just pick a really easy number, 1 centimeter per hour. So after 1 hour, all right, of working out, my body needs lots of energy and it can diffuse. Let's say it can diffuse at 1 centimeter per hour. So after 1 hour, this entire cell, that those nutrients, let's say in this case the glucose, there's that glucose, is going to go into the cell. And it's going to be able to fill up that entire cell because if it's going from the outside and it's going to diffuse in towards the center, if it goes at 1 centimeter per hour, all right, let's say it diffuses at, just so I don't forget what I said, it diffuses at 1 centimeter per hour. After 1 hour, this entire red one, the one with the very small amount of small space, is completely filled, right? Because it went 1 centimeter per hour. It goes in 1 centimeter. That would fill up the whole block, all right? Now here, although we have more surface area, we have more space for things to go across, we also have more volume. The amount of space or the amount of membrane for things to go, that glucose to go in, went up by times 4. But the amount of space on the inside, the amount of cytoplasm, mitochondria, nucleus, all that stuff went up by times 8. So it's a lot more space. And if it only can go 1 centimeter per hour, that means it's only going to be going in about halfway. Right? Which means I only get I don't get all of it in there. Right? So that glucose is going to diffuse in, right? But it doesn't, in an hour, it doesn't make it all the way, which means if I have any mitochondria in that center part, they didn't get glucose in time. All right? In that hour, they did not get glucose because they are too big for it to reach that. It might take 2 hours. All right? Well, if it's kind of I'm in a situation where I'm life and death, like that could be a problem. All right? I might run out of energy. All right? So if it's really big, and yes, I have a really big surface area, but my volume went up a lot and that ratio went down. It was 6-to-1, where I had yes, it was really small volume, but I had a lot of surface area to fill up that volume. Now I have a little bit less surface area to fill up that cell. And now I have even less surface area in that ratio. So it only goes in an inch or a centimeter. And so maybe I'm only able to fill a smaller percentage of that, or is able to go in. It still is going in at the diffusing of 1 centimeter per hour. But when my cell is, or when my block is really big, or my cell is really big, it takes really long time, right? Really long time for that glucose or those nutrients to diffuse into it. It's going to take 3 times as long because I have a lot more space to fill up, right? So if I have something in here, it's going to take 3 times as long to get that glucose so that I can convert it into energy. That's going to be less efficient for my cells. I want to get as much energy as I can as possible, right? If I want to be really, really efficient, I would rather have, instead of one big block that takes forever to get all diffuse all the way in, I'd rather have just a bunch of small ones that all get filled up very quickly. All right. And so this is why we have our really small cells. So let's go back to our question here, our 2 questions here. Why is it important? Why are cells so small? All right. And why is it better to be multicellular than one big cell? All right. Now there's a couple of answers we could say to this. How do we want to say it? All right. And it basically depends on how we want to put in these nutrients. So there's multiple answers to this question. All right. 1, why are they small? 1, smaller means you can do a lot more things. They can fit in a lot of smaller places. They're not big and bulky, right? Big and bulky things are unwieldy. It's harder to do a lot more complex functions. But what we're talking about here, the reason why cells are so small is because we need lots of surface area. The more surface area, all right, the more surface area, let's actually talk about, because it's not just surface area, because the surface area is going up on these ones. It's not just surface area. It's not just volume. It's the surface area to volume ratio. So that's why I'm going to write the more surface area to volume ratio allows the diffusion of more molecules. All right. A lot of times in life, it's more important to be quick and efficient than it is to just have like a bulk amount. I mean, we could think of it this way. If I was going to, I'm a coach and I'm trying to fill up water bottles for my team, is it smarter to fill up a bunch of smaller water bottles to give to my team, or fill up a gigantic drum for them to drink, or to fill up, knowing I have a limited amount of time? All right. If I have a limited amount of time, it's probably better for me to fill up a bunch of small ones, right? Because that's going to go quicker each time than to try and fill up a very large area material. All right. Even though it has more surface area, it also has more volume. All right. So more surface area volume, or a ratio. So the bigger the ratio, right, the more diffusion. And when it comes to nutrients necessary for life, that's crucial. All right, that's crucial. If I need oxygen in my cells, I need to get them into my cells as fast as possible. All right. So here's my second question. All right. So here was my first answer. Here, the second question: why is it being better to be multicellular than one big cell? It's just what I explained. Sorry, I walked away from the mic. All right. As I just explained, it's better to be multicellular because it is more efficient to have smaller cells for diffusion. All right, because it's more efficient to be a smaller one, I would rather have a bunch of smaller ones than have to fill up one really big or a handful of really big cells, because those parts in the middle, if that's my nucleus and that nucleus needs new free-floating nucleotides to replicate DNA, it's not going to reach it. It's going to take forever. All right, that process is going to be slowed down. That can affect the structure of the cell, affects the function of the cell, and can affect the whole organism if it's a widespread problem. All right. So there was a lot going on here. All right. We talked a little about, we had some numbers here. We talked about shapes. We talked about diffusion, things going in across that outer membrane to try and fill that inside part. It's about that ratio. The greater the ratio, the more diffusion that can happen, because how much the surface area goes up is not the same rate that the volume goes up. It's about that ratio in between them. Smaller cells allow for better, more efficient diffusion, which can mean better success for that cell to survive and do its job. All right, now this is a little bit of a tough topic, so if there was something, you were writing a lot of stuff down, but you weren't necessarily listening, or you missed an explanation, or you're saying, I still don't understand, I highly recommend going back through the video and watching it one more time. All right, otherwise, thanks for watching, and good luck, and may the science be with you.